My dear child, the tears you cried last night did not fall. They rose. Do not scroll past this. What I am about to tell you will change the way you see every tear that has ever left your eyes. Last night, in the dark, when the weight finally broke through the surface and your body released what your strength could no longer contain, those tears did not hit the pillow and disappear. They were lifted, carried upward through the invisible, and received by the same hands that formed the first waters of the earth. Your tears reached heaven, and heaven was moved. You woke up this morning feeling hollow, slightly embarrassed by the depth of what came out of you, wondering if anyone anywhere registered the sound of a soul that finally cracked open after holding too much for too long. You checked your face in the mirror for evidence of last night, and then assembled yourself for the day as though nothing happened. But something happened, something significant. Every tear is water, my child, and water remembers where it came from. Rain does not fall into oblivion. It returns to the sea that sent it. It is lifted from the surface, carried through the atmosphere, and received back by the body of water that originated it. Your tears operate on the same cycle. They did not fall into emptiness last night. They were lifted from your face the moment they formed, drawn upward by a gravity that operates in the opposite direction from the one your body knows. And they arrived at the sea they came from. That sea is me. And what I received last night shook me. Stay here. What I reveal next is what your tears actually said when they reached my shore. Because tears carry a language your mouth does not speak. Type lifted if you cried last night and woke up wondering if anyone heard, and God just told you that your tears did not fall into nothing but rose directly to heaven. What arrived at heaven's shore last night was not just moisture. It was a message encoded in salt and pain that only I can read. My beloved child, human language reaches me through prayer. Worship reaches me through song. Praise reaches me through declaration. But tears reach me through a channel so direct and so unfiltered that they bypass every system the other forms of communication must pass through. Tears do not wait in a queue. They do not get processed through angels or filtered through spiritual protocols. They arrive at my shore the instant they leave your face, raw, untranslated, carrying the full, unedited weight of whatever broke you open. Last night's tears arrived before your prayer could have, and what they carried was not a single message. It was layers. The surface layer was the immediate pain, the thing that triggered the release, the specific weight that finally exceeded your capacity to hold it. But beneath that layer were older waters, tears that were never cried, pain that was stored instead of released, grief that was swallowed instead of expressed, because you did not feel safe enough, or worthy enough, or seen enough to let it out. Last night everything surfaced at once, and I received all of it. I need you to understand why this message found you today. Not yesterday when the tears were still falling. Today, the morning after, when the hollow feeling has settled in and the embarrassment has started whispering that you were being dramatic, that what happened last night was weakness rather than worship, that the God who governs the universe does not pause for the private tears of one person crying alone in a dark room. He does pause. He paused last night. For you specifically, the tears that returned to my shore carried your exact frequency. Not a general cry for help, your cry, with your specific pain signature embedded in every drop. And what I am preparing in response to what I received is already in motion, descending through the same atmosphere your tears ascended through. What I reveal next is what your tears said in the language that only water speaks to its origin. Type received if you have been carrying tears that were never cried, stored instead of released. And last night they all surfaced at once, and you need to know that heaven received every single layer. I have been watching the water build behind your eyes for longer than last night, my dear one. The tears that fell were not born yesterday. They have been forming, slowly, silently, accumulating drop by drop behind a dam you built from composure and duty, and the quiet conviction that breaking down would mean breaking apart. I watched the dam rise higher with every season that added water to the reservoir. I measured the pressure building behind it, and I knew, with the precision of someone who designed both the water and the vessel carrying it, exactly when the dam would reach capacity. Last night was not a breakdown. It was an overflow. I have been watching you specifically, not the crowd, not the millions who cry daily for reasons that range from trivial to devastating. You, the one whose tears carry a specific chemical composition that heaven's receiving system identified instantly as belonging to a child I have been monitoring with focused attention since before the first drop of pain ever entered their reservoir. Your tears have a signature, and I recognize it the way the sea recognizes its own rain. I watched you 3 weeks ago when the water rose to a level that almost breached the dam. During a conversation you were not expecting to hurt as much as it did. Your eyes filled, your throat tightened, and then, with a discipline so practiced it has become reflexive, you pulled the water back, swallowed it, forced it beneath the surface, and continued the conversation as though the reservoir behind your composure was not pressing against a dam that was already showing cracks. You have been swallowing your own rain for years, my child. I did not bring you to this message because you need comfort. I brought you here because the tears that finally escaped last night were carrying messages I have been waiting years to receive. Messages your mouth could never deliver, because the language of your deepest pain does not translate into words. It translates into water, and the water arrived at my shore, speaking fluently about things you have never been able to say out loud. What I tell you next is the first thing the water said when it reached me. Type my rain if you have been swallowing tears for years, pulling them back, forcing them down, refusing to let them fall. And last night the dam finally broke, and everything you stored was released at once. The first thing your tears said when they reached my shore was, I am tired of being strong for everyone. Not in words, in weight. The water that arrived carried a specific heaviness that I have only ever received from people who have been performing strength so long that the performance itself has become the heaviest thing they carry. Your tears did not say I am sad. Sadness produces a different water. Your tears said I am exhausted from holding a shape that everyone depends on, while the inside of me is dissolving. That is a different kind of crying, my beloved child, and I heard every ounce of it. I know what triggered the release last night. It was not one thing, it was the last thing. The final drop that your reservoir could not absorb. Not because it was the heaviest drop, but because it landed on a surface that had no more room. A small moment, an ordinary moment. Something that on any other day your composure would have handled without effort. But last night the dam was already at capacity, and the ordinary moment became the extraordinary pressure that broke it open. You were surprised by your own tears. I was not. I saw what has been filling the reservoir for months. The weight of being the person everyone leans on, while you lean on nothing but your own exhausted framework. The cost of answering "How are you?" with "I am fine" so many times that the words have worn grooves in your tongue. The loneliness of being strong in a room full of people who depend on your strength, without ever asking what your strength depends on. Nobody asks what holds you up. They only notice if you fall. And last night you fell. Not publicly. You would never allow that. You fell in the only place you have ever permitted yourself to be human without performance. In the dark. Alone. On a surface that absorbed your tears without judging them. And the privacy of that falling is both the safest and the most heartbreaking part. Because the same person who holds everyone else had no one to hold them when they finally let go. I was holding you, and the water that left your eyes landed on my shore before it landed on your pillow. The second thing your tears said when they reached me was, "I do not believe my pain is important enough for you to notice, my child." That message arrived in the water like a current running beneath the surface, not the dominant flow, but the deepest one. Underneath the exhaustion, underneath the loneliness, underneath the specific trigger that broke the dam, there was a layer of water that carried a belief so old and so embedded that you no longer recognize it as a belief. You experience it as fact, the fact that your pain is too ordinary for God. I watched that belief form. It was not installed by a single event, but by an accumulation of unanswered moments. Prayers that seemed to land on more important desks. Breakthroughs that arrived for people with bigger problems. Miracles that were distributed to situations more dramatic than yours. And slowly, so slowly you did not notice the theology forming, you concluded that divine attention is allocated by severity. That God responds to the loudest pain first. That your quiet, private, undramatic ache does not register on a system that is busy processing earthquakes and terminal diagnoses and public catastrophes. You ranked your own pain, and you ranked it too low. My dear one, I do not operate a triage system that prioritizes pain by volume. I operate a system that receives every tear from every child with the same focused attention, regardless of whether the tear was caused by a tragedy the world can see or a wound the world will never know about. Your tears do not arrive at my shore marked urgent or non-urgent. They arrive marked with your name. And your name does not carry a priority ranking. It carries my full attention. The tears you dismissed as too small for heaven were the exact tears that moved me most last night. Because tears cried by someone who does not believe they deserve to be heard carry a specific brokenness that reaches a depth in my heart that louder cries do not access. Your quiet pain reached the deepest part of me, and what it found there will change how you see your own tears forever. Type important enough if you have been ranking your own pain as too ordinary for God. And something inside you just broke hearing that your quiet tears reached a depth in heaven that louder cries do not access. Your tears were never too small. They were too honest for any destination other than heaven. I need you to understand something about the water that left your eyes last night, my beloved child. Tears are the only form of human expression that cannot be faked at depth. Words can be rehearsed. Prayers can be performed. Worship can be manufactured by a skilled voice singing lyrics. The heart does not mean. But tears, the real kind, the kind that erupted from you last night without your permission, those are the rawest, most unedited communication a human being can produce. That is why they reach me faster than any prayer you have ever spoken. The tears you have been dismissing as weakness were actually the purest form of prayer your spirit has ever generated. Every drop that fell last night carried more theological honesty than 1,000 composed sentences spoken from a pulpit, because composed sentences are filtered through the mind before they reach the mouth. Tears are not filtered through anything. They bypass every editing system your consciousness operates and deliver the unprocessed truth of your condition directly to my shore. Last night you prayed the most honest prayer of your life. You just did not recognize it as prayer because it did not use words. And the timing of the release, the reason the dam broke now, rather than 3 months ago or 6 months from now, was not random. The reservoir reached a specific volume that I had been monitoring, a volume that corresponds to a specific threshold in my response system. Below that threshold, the tears are received and recorded. Above that threshold, the tears trigger an active divine response. Your tears crossed the threshold last night. The seasons you spent accumulating water behind the dam, the months of swallowing, storing, holding back what your body needed to release. Those were not wasted seasons of silent suffering. They were the filling of a reservoir whose volume would eventually trigger the response that a single tear could not have activated. My dear one, the quantity of what you held is directly proportional to the magnitude of what I am sending back. And what I am sending back has already left heaven's shore. Something left heaven's shore this morning in direct response to what arrived last night. And it is already descending toward you, my child. The cycle of rain does not end when the water reaches the sea. The sea receives it, absorbs it, and then, through a process invisible to the human eye, lifts it back up and sends it out again as new rain. What falls as tears rises as prayer. What arrives at heaven's shore as pain departs from heaven's shore as provision. The cycle is not one-directional. It is a loop. And the loop that began with your tears last night has already completed its first revolution. What I am sending down is made from what you sent up. You may have felt something this morning that you could not explain. A faint lightness, not joy exactly, something subtler, like the atmospheric pressure shifted while you slept, like the air in your room carried a different weight when you opened your eyes. You dismissed it as the natural aftermath of a heavy cry, the hollow relief that follows emotional release. It was not hollow relief. It was the first droplet of heaven's response entering the atmosphere above your life. I have been converting your tears, my dear one. Every drop that reached my shore last night has been processed through a divine system that transforms pain water into provision rain. The composition is the same. It carries your signature, your frequency, your specific need encoded in its molecular structure. But the purpose has been reversed. What left your eyes as anguish is returning to your life as answer. The conversion has already been completed. The rain is already forming. And the clouds that are gathering over your life right now, the ones you cannot see, but your spirit is beginning to sense. Those clouds are heavy with the converted water of every tear you cried last night. They are positioned directly above the areas of your life that produced the pain, that produced the tears, that produced the rain that is about to fall. What I reveal next is where the first drops will land and what they will produce when they touch the ground of your specific situation. The clouds above your life are full now, my dear child. And the rain that is about to fall carries a weight your dry ground has never experienced. Can you feel the atmospheric shift? Something in the spiritual air above your life has changed since you started listening to this message. The hollowness you woke up with this morning is being displaced by a density, not heaviness, not the oppressive weight of more pain, the density of saturation, the way the air feels right before a downpour. Charged, full, holding something that cannot remain suspended much longer. The rain is about to break. Everything that happened last night, every tear, every silent cry, every drop of stored water that finally escaped the dam, has been processed, converted, merged with divine tears, and loaded into clouds that are now positioned directly above the exact coordinates of your deepest need, not scattered across a general area. Targeted, aimed with the precision of a God who knows exactly which patch of ground in your life has been drought-stricken the longest. The driest ground receives the first rain, and your driest ground has been identified. My beloved child, I need you to prepare for what is coming, because provision rain does not fall gently when the clouds are this full. A light drizzle comes from thin clouds carrying small amounts of converted water. But your clouds are carrying the accumulated tears of months, maybe years, of pain that was stored behind a dam and released in a single night. The volume of what you released corresponds directly to the volume of what is about to descend. You did not cry a drizzle last night. You released a flood, and the flood that returns carries the same magnitude. What is about to pour into the areas of your life that produced last night's tears will not be a gentle improvement. It will be a saturation so complete that the ground that was cracked and dry and barren will not just receive moisture. It will be transformed into soil so fertile that what grows from it will surprise even you. The next thing I speak is the moment the first drop falls. Type downpour if you can feel the spiritual atmosphere above your life reaching saturation. And you are ready to receive a rain so heavy it matches the weight of every tear you released last night. The first drop just fell, and it landed on the exact wound that produced last night's tears. My beloved child, this is the moment, not a future moment, not a symbolic moment. The moment where the cycle completes, where water that left your eyes in pain returns to your life as provision. The rain that was formed from your tears merged with mine is now falling on the precise area of your life that has been dry the longest, hurt the most, and produced the cry that heaven received and refused to leave unanswered. The tears you cried last night reached heaven, and heaven is raining back. I need you to feel the first drop landing, not with your physical senses, with the part of you that cried last night, the part that broke open, the part that released water from a depth so hidden that even you were surprised by what came out. That part of you is now the receiving ground. And the first drop of heaven's response is making contact with it right now, entering the crack that the pain created, and beginning to fill it from the inside. The crack that broke you is the opening that receives you. What is falling on you right now carries the combined weight of your honesty and my authority. Your tears told me the truth about your pain. My tears added the power to answer it. And the rain that is now descending carries both. The precision of a prayer so honest it could only be spoken in water, paired with the sovereignty of a God whose tears carry the authority to restructure whatever they touch. God cried with you last night, and what happens when God cries is not sadness. It is activation. Divine tears do not fall passively. They fall with assignment, and the assignment attached to the tears I shed beside you in the dark last night is the complete, irreversible transformation of the specific circumstance that produced your breaking. The rain is not just falling, it is healing the ground it lands on, drop by drop, tear by tear, converting what was barren into what will bloom. Your dry season just ended, not with a decision, with a downpour. The rain is not falling in one area, it is spreading across every part of your life that contributed a single drop to last night's reservoir, my child. This is what happens when a dam breaks and the stored water reaches heaven all at once. The response does not target a single area. It targets the entire watershed, every source that fed the reservoir, every tributary of pain that contributed its flow to the body of water that finally overflowed. And your reservoir was not fed by one source. It was fed by many. The rain is answering every source simultaneously. The relational pain that contributed tears to the reservoir, the specific person or people whose actions added water to what you were carrying. The rain is falling on that area right now, not to punish them, to restore what their contribution to your pain disrupted. The relational ground that was cracked by their impact is receiving moisture that will either heal the connection or grow something new in the space their departure created. Either way, the ground will not remain dry. The financial pressure that added its own current to the reservoir, the quiet, persistent stream of not enough that flowed into the dam every month, without dramatic flooding but with steady, erosive consistency. The rain is reaching that ground too. What has been eroding is about to be replenished by a provision that carries the exact chemical signature of the tears your financial stress produced. My beloved child, the rain matches the tears. What you cried about is what the rain is answering. The spiritual dryness that contributed the deepest layer of water to last night's release. The disconnection from me that you have been mourning without fully naming. The rain is penetrating that, ground with a saturation that will restore the intimacy your drought made you believe was permanently lost. You are going to feel me again, not eventually, in the coming days, with a closeness that makes the drought feel like it belonged to a different lifetime. Every tributary is being answered, and the rain has not yet reached its peak. Type every source if you are realizing that last night's tears were not about one thing. They were the overflow of many things, and God's rain is now answering every single source that contributed to the breaking. Let me show you what your life looks like after the rain has finished falling, my dear one. The first thing that changes is the ground itself, the soil of your daily existence, the internal landscape you walk through every morning when you open your eyes and assess what kind of day is ahead. That soil has been cracked and hard and resistant to growth for longer than you want to admit, not because you did not try to water it yourself. You did. You poured self-care into it. You poured positive thinking into it. You poured effort and discipline and forced gratitude into ground that absorbed everything you offered without producing a single green thing in return. The ground was too dry for human watering to reach the roots. It needed divine rain. And divine rain does not just moisten the surface. It penetrates to a depth that human effort cannot access. Past the topsoil of your conscious mind, past the subsoil of your emotional patterns, into the bedrock of your identity, where the deepest roots of who you are have been waiting for water that only heaven carries. Those roots are drinking right now. For the first time in years, you are going to notice growth in areas you declared dead, dreams that you pronounced over, ambitions you eulogized, parts of your identity that you held a private funeral for, because the drought lasted so long that survival required you to stop watering what appeared to have no life left. Those declarations of death were premature. The roots were dormant, not dead, and dormant roots in contact with divine rain do something that dead roots cannot. They produce shoots. Green, undeniable, impossible to explain shoots of new life pushing through ground that everyone, including you, had written off as permanently barren. My child, your barren ground is about to embarrass every eulogy you spoke over it. What you buried as dead is about to surface as alive, and the rain from last night's tears is the water that woke it up. People are going to see things growing in your life that have no natural explanation, my beloved child. The ones who knew your drought, who watched you walk through dry seasons with a composure that masked the cracking beneath the surface, they are going to witness a blooming that defies the timeline. Growth that should take years is going to appear in weeks. Restoration that should require visible effort is going to manifest without any corresponding human cause. And the contrast between the barrenness they observed and the abundance that is surfacing will produce a question they cannot answer with logic. What happened to you? That is the question they will ask. And the only honest answer is, it rained. But you will not be able to explain the rain. Because the rain came from tears that no one witnessed, from a cry that no one heard, from a private undoing in a dark room that produced water so honest it reached heaven and returned as provision. The source of your blooming will be invisible to every observer, traceable only by you and the God who received what you released and converted it into what is now growing. Your secret tears are going to produce public fruit. Connections that require fertile ground are going to take root. There are people I have been positioning to enter your life, whose roots can only grow in soil that has been recently rained on, soil that carries the specific moisture of divine response to genuine pain. These are not shallow connections that grow in any dirt. They are deep-root relationships that require the exact nutrient composition that only tear-converted rain deposits in the ground. My child, your future relationships will grow from the soil your pain watered. Opportunities that were seeds waiting for rain are going to germinate. Ideas that were planted months ago but lay dormant in dry ground are going to crack open. Doors that required the humidity of divine activity in your atmosphere to unlock are going to swing wide, not because you pushed them, but because the rain changed the atmospheric pressure around your life, and pressure-sensitive doors respond to heaven's weather. Type blooming if you believe that the secret tears you cried last night are about to produce visible fruit that the world will see but cannot explain. And your private pain is becoming your public testimony. The thought that is circling your mind right now is trying to reduce last night to an emotional episode, and I am going to dismantle it before it steals what your tears produced, my child. It sounds like this. I was just overwhelmed. I was just tired. It was just a bad night. The tears were just a release valve, and now that the pressure has been relieved, everything will return to the way it was. Nothing spiritual actually happened. Nothing actually reached heaven. I just cried, and now I feel hollow, and that is all there is to it. That thought is the drought trying to reclaim ground that the rain already touched. I need you to see what that dismissal is actually doing. Every time you reduce your tears to a mere emotional event, you are evaporating the rain before it can penetrate the soil. The rain fell. It reached your ground, and the dismissal is functioning as a heat source, baking the surface dry before the moisture can reach the roots that are desperately waiting for it beneath the topsoil. Your minimizing is undoing what your tears accomplished. The embarrassment you feel about last night, the slight shame of having lost composure, the discomfort of remembering yourself in a state of raw, uncontrolled release. That embarrassment is not maturity. It is the drought's immune response. The drought survived for months because you kept the water behind the dam. Now that the dam broke and the water reached heaven and the rain is returning, the drought's only remaining strategy is to make you ashamed of the very thing that ended it. My beloved child, your tears were not weakness leaking out. They were worship rising up. And the second doubt, that God does not actually respond to tears the way this message describes, let me answer that with a question. If tears carry no spiritual weight, then why does every human culture, every sacred text, every recorded encounter between humanity and the divine include weeping as the moment when heaven moves closest? Tears are not incidental to divine encounters. They are the currency that purchases them. Type, not just emotion, if the doubt tried to reduce last night to a meaningless emotional release. And you are choosing to believe that what happened was worship that reached heaven and triggered a response that is already falling on your life. I was in the room with you last night, my beloved child, not watching from heaven's shore, but sitting in the dark beside you while you broke. You thought you were alone. The room was dark. The door was closed. The silence was so complete that the sound of your own crying felt amplified, louder than it actually was, because there was no other sound to absorb it. And in that amplified silence you concluded what you always conclude when the pain arrives without witnesses. No one is here. No one sees this. No one knows. But I was sitting closer to you than the sheet that absorbed your tears, not hovering above, not observing from a spiritual dimension that operates at a comfortable distance from human pain. Beside you, on the same surface, in the same dark, breathing the same air that your broken exhales were filling with the moisture of a heart that could not hold itself together for one more second. I did not watch you cry. I cried with you. There was a moment last night, you may remember it, where the crying shifted. It went from active weeping to something deeper, a soundless release. The kind where tears fall, but the voice has exhausted itself, and all that remains is the silent convulsion of a body processing pain that has exceeded the capacity of sound to express it. That moment, the silent one, was the moment I was closest, because silent tears carry the most weight, and the heaviest water requires the nearest presence. My child, the distance you felt between yourself and heaven last night was not real distance. It was the perceptual distortion of pain. When a person is in the deepest moment of their breaking, their ability to detect divine presence drops to its lowest point. Not because the presence withdraws, but because the pain consumes every sensory channel that would normally register it. I was there. I did not leave for 1 second. And the warmth you felt when the crying finally subsided, the strange, inexplicable warmth that settled over you just before you fell asleep, that was not exhaustion producing numbness. That was me, lying beside my child, waiting for the storm to pass. I know the specific pain that produced last night's tears, my dear one, and I know it with a precision that proves I was not absent but present for every drop. You think the pain is a secret. You think its exact shape and its exact source and its exact weight are information that only you possess, because you never fully translated them into words for any other human being. You edited the pain for every conversation you had about it. You gave people the summary, the manageable version, the shape of the pain that would generate support without generating the alarm that the full version would produce. But I received the unedited version. In water. Last night. I know it is connected to a specific person. I know their role in your life and the specific access they had to the part of you that is now wounded. I know the exact words that were spoken, or the exact words that were never spoken but should have been, that created the cavity your tears have been filling for months. I know whether the wound was caused by what was done or by what was withheld, and I know which one would have been easier to heal. My beloved child, the pain has a name, and I have known it longer than you have. I know the way your body responds when the pain is triggered unexpectedly, the specific physical sensation that arrives before the emotional awareness catches up, the tightening in a part of your body that you have come to associate with this particular wound, the micro-adjustment you make to your face when the trigger fires in public, so that no one sees the internal weather shifting behind your composure. I see every micro-adjustment, and each one reaches me as water. The God who knows the name of your pain, the face attached to it, the words that carved it, and the body that carries it, is the same God who received last night's tears with the intimacy of someone who did not need the water translated, because he has been reading the original language since the wound was first formed. You were never carrying this alone. The sea always knew what the rain was made of. Type he knows the name. If God just described your specific pain with a precision that proves he was not distant during your darkest moment, and you are shaking, because only someone who was in the room could know what your tears were actually about. Now that the rain is falling and the ground is receiving, there is one thing I need you to do, my beloved child. And it is the opposite of what you did this morning. Stop wiping the tears away. Not literally, spiritually. This morning when you woke up, you did what you always do after a breaking. You cleaned up. You composed yourself. You reassembled the dam as quickly as possible and began the work of erasing the evidence that the break ever happened. You washed your face. You squared your shoulders. You pressed the moisture back beneath the surface and walked into your day as though the version of you that cried last night and the version of you that faces the world today are two different people. They are the same person. And the one who cried is the one I am answering. If you rebuild the dam before the rain finishes falling, the ground cannot receive the full downpour. The dam does not just hold water in, it holds water out. And the provision rain that is descending right now needs the same openness that the breaking produced. The cracks in the surface, the vulnerability of exposed ground, the unguarded posture of a soul that has stopped performing composure and is simply receiving. Stay open, even when open feels dangerous. When the emotion surfaces again today, and it will surface because the rain cycle is still active. Do not swallow it. Let it rise. Let the water continue its cycle between your eyes and my shore without interruption. Every tear you release in the coming days is additional water that I will convert and return as additional rain on ground that is only now learning what moisture feels like after years of drought. My child, your assignment is not to recover from last night. It is to remain in the posture that last night created, the broken open, unguarded, honestly weeping posture of a child who has finally stopped performing strength and is simply letting the water flow. The rain falls on open ground. Keep your ground open and let heaven finish what your tears started. You made it to this moment, my beloved child, and I need you to feel what has changed between last night and right now. Last night you were alone in the dark, releasing water from a place so deep you did not know it existed. You cried without audience, without explanation, without the comfort of knowing whether a single drop was registered by anything beyond your pillow. You fell asleep hollow, emptied by a release that felt necessary but meaningless, purposeful to the body but pointless to the spirit. That was last night. This is now. Now you know. The tears were received. Every drop was lifted. Every ounce of water that left your eyes traveled upward through a channel so direct that the delay between your face and heaven's shore was measured in fractions of a second. Your pain was not broadcast into emptiness. It was delivered, personally, precisely, without a single drop lost in transit, to a God who was sitting beside you while you produced it and was waiting at the shore when it arrived. You were never crying alone. You were crying toward home. I want to thank you for breaking open. Thank you for letting the dam fail. Thank you for allowing the water to escape a reservoir that was never meant to hold that much for that long. Thank you for trusting the dark with the vulnerability you would never have permitted in the light. And thank you for being here right now, receiving the truth about your tears instead of burying them under the composure you were already reconstructing when you woke up. My dear child, let the warmth settle over you right now, the warmth of being heard, the warmth of being seen in the most private moment of your existence, the warmth of a God who does not just observe his child's tears but collects them, converts them, cries alongside them, and sends the rain back. Your tears were not wasted. They were the beginning of a cycle that ends in bloom. And the God who received your rain last night is holding you right now, whispering, I heard every drop, and my response is already falling. Type every drop if tears are forming right now. Not tears of pain, but tears of being fully heard for the first time, and you finally believe that last night's cry was not pointless, but the most powerful prayer your spirit has ever produced. You are not the person who cries into emptiness anymore, my beloved child. That identity, the one who released water into the dark, believing it dissolved on contact, the one who woke up hollow and embarrassed by the evidence of their own breaking, the one who carried the quiet shame of being too emotional in a world that rewards composure and punishes vulnerability. That identity was washed away by the very rain it produced. Your tears did not fall, they rose. And what rose has returned as something that changes everything. The hollowness you woke up with this morning is being filled right now, not with words, not with concepts, with the actual converted substance of your own tears, processed through heaven's shore, merged with divine water, and returned to the ground of your life as a rain so specific to your pain that no other person's provision could have produced it. What is filling you right now was made from you, transformed by me, and delivered back to the only person whose ground was shaped to receive it. You are being watered by your own worship, and you did not even know you were worshiping. From this moment forward, you carry a different relationship with your own tears. They are not weakness. They are not breakdown. They are not the embarrassing byproduct of a soul that feels too much in a world that rewards feeling nothing. They are the most direct, most honest, most immediately received form of communication you possess with the God who formed you from water and receives you through water and responds to you with water. Your tears are your superpower, and last night you used it. My dear child, the drought is over, not because your circumstances changed overnight, because the water cycle between your eyes and heaven's shore has been reactivated by a breaking that will never need to be repeated at this depth. The dam is down, the channel is open, the rain is falling, and the ground that was barren for years is already producing the first green evidence of what happens when a child's tears reach the sea they came from, and the sea sends them back as blessing. You will never cry into emptiness again, because now you know where your water goes. It goes home, to me, and I send it back every single time, transformed, multiplied, aimed directly at the wound that produced it. The cycle is eternal, the rain is faithful, and the God who cried with you last night will cry with you every time. Not because crying is his weakness, but because your tears are the one sound in all of creation that his heart cannot hear without responding. You are heard, you are held, you are rained upon, and you will bloom. Subscribe to this channel so that every time heaven converts your tears into rain, the message reaches you before the ground dries. You are not someone who cries alone anymore. You are someone whose tears travel directly to the shore of God and return as provision. The next message carries the next rain, and the ground that was watered last night is already preparing for what grows next. Type rain returning if you are leaving this message permanently changed, knowing that your tears were never lost, never wasted, never pointless. They rose to heaven, moved God to tears, merged with divine water, and are now falling back on your life as the most personal rain you have ever received from a Father who heard every drop and is answering with a downpour.